it's Coach Tori, and this is Raising Runners. We talk running, fitness, mental health, and so many more topics. As the founder of a youth running program, I approach all of our conversations with our youth athletes in mind and kind of have a focus around those things. But as you will see, we are finding that all of these topics relate to runners and people who like to move and do fitness or anything like that. Relates to everybody. Check it out. Coach Tori here, and we are talking about optimizing your running when running can't be your entire life. I'm sure a lot of you picture, like me, a dream world where you wake up after 9 hours and 10 minutes of sleep. The sun is up, the birds are chirping, the weather is no humidity, it's 47 degrees. You get to have your coffee, your pancakes, you get to go out on your nice long run. You come home, shower, stretch, foam roll, nap, go to your chiropractor, go do a strength session. I mean, right? Like we can picture what if running was all we did. You can picture what your days would look like. You also can probably imagine how unstoppable you can be as a runner, because I know I also have those visions of like, if I eat, breathed, slept, running, and that was all it was, like I could be amazing. But I also live in the real world, and sometimes that is figuring out how to make things work. So slightly more realistic kind of day, you wake up, not enough sleep, it's raining, you didn't get to have the perfect breakfast, you now have to go to work or whatever you're doing for 8, 10, 12 hours, you come home, you maybe squeeze in a workout, you try to fit in dinner, right? So that's more of what our lives are actually looking like. How can we still be the great runner we want to be? And again, that's all defined by whatever you want that to mean. But how can we still be a runner when we can't make running everything that we're doing? So that is what we're going to talk about in this mini series. We're going to talk about some main elements to that. Of course, running, our strength training, our recovery, our sleep, our nutrition, our mindset, and all things kind of with that we can do to still be the great runners we want to be, but also still live in the lives that we have. It is Coach Tori here, and I am solo, and this is going to be a mini episode, I guess, today, mostly because I am just super busy, but I did want to get a little bit of info out there for everybody, and I will be re-releasing one of our old episodes because it is relevant to what we are talking about. So today, for our series on optimizing running, what is the series called? Optimizing your running for your real life, something like that, right? We're super busy and we want to run. I forget what I've named it now, but we're talking about strength training when you're super busy. Why are we talking about strength training? Because it is so important for our running. Obviously makes us faster, stronger, strength, right? And reduces our risk of injury, and especially with the whole idea behind being our best running selves, we don't have a whole lot of time. The strength training piece is super important to that because, we want to be faster, we want to be stronger, we want to be able to improve more. And also we don't really want to be using our time on injury recovery and all those kinds of things. So this kind of just like blends in with everything. So I did want to get a little bit of info out there as we start to move into some more topics, just because strength training kind of is a whole lot involved with everything I think that we're going to talk about. I guess, first of all, for people who say that they don't need to do strength training, I feel like there's not that many of us out there as runners anymore. There was a time years and years ago where I did nothing but running, and I probably ran just a couple of miles a day, almost every day of the week. And I don't think I ever got hurt, but also I was never improving. I was not racing. Anytime I tried to train for a race, I got hurt because my body just was not ready for increased volume or anything like that. So yes, you can run without strength training. But if you are, like we're talking about in this series, trying to be a better runner, improve your running, really maximize your time to be the most efficient runner, you need to have some strength training in there. So usually what we're talking about is like 2 to 3 times a week, probably for strength. Having about at least one day in between where you're not doing strength training. So if possible, not having your strength days be back to back. And also just like getting something of the strength variety done is going to be better than not doing it at all. So we're going to talk about that a little bit as we move on. So really for this episode, I'm just going to talk a little bit about some tips to fitting strength training in, some different kinds of options or things to look at for strength training, specifically for people who are super busy and don't know if they're going to have time otherwise to fit in strength training. And that's kind of what we're talking about for this. Then the episode I'm re-releasing is going to be strength training with Coach T, and she talks all about strength training for runners for different goals, different distances, different experiences. She talks about cross training as well. So that is just really a lot more information about all things strength training for runners. So I figure just you can check that one out. She's way more fun to listen to than me talking to myself here. So yeah, getting into it. So a couple weeks ago, when I gave the tips from Colleen and Coach Allen, one of the things Allen had mentioned was fitting in some of that strength stuff when you're waiting for the kettle to boil. And I think then I also talked about doing some strength training while I'm watching TV or something. That is the first thing I want to talk about, first place to start for people who currently do not do strength training or think they cannot fit strength training into their current plan, especially if they're only able to have, X amount of time and they're using that for running for training. Fitting that in while you're making your coffee, doing something while you're brushing your teeth, doing a couple things while you're watching TV, while you're taking your dogs out. Another tip that Alan had was using some of that dead time. So thinking of those little pockets of time where you're like, okay, I'm just standing around doing this, or I'm not really doing anything while I'm also doing this thing that I could be moving my body. So trying to fit some strength training into those times. Currently for me, that's what I end up doing a lot. I would love to be able to have an hour to go hit the gym and do some strength training and have like my specific workout day be, this is my strength workout day. That's just not fitting in this schedule right now. So I will often be doing lunges while I'm waiting for my coffee to be made. I will do like a whole core routine right before, like as I'm sitting down to watch Netflix. And by a whole core routine, I mean like 7 minutes probably of some core. I have the luxury of being a coach as my job. So when the kids that I coach are doing body weight exercises, I also try to do them with them because that also fits things in. So anybody who has an active job, kind of sneak those things in there as well. For a lot of the runners that I coach, the adult runners that I coach, oftentimes are not doing a strength routine to start. So a nice way to also start that is putting it into your warm-up routine. So if we're warming up for, really anything. For me personally, ever since I've been running with the stroller, I have some glute activation issues. I think I've talked about that before. So I run through the whole Myrtle routine, or well, not actually the whole thing, some of the exercises in the Myrtle routine to really activate those glutes so that they are firing. So that's just one way I'm doing strength before I go out. I spend about 5 minutes on my way out the door. I could have been doing an easy jog. I could have been doing a walk. I could have been doing some other kind of warm-up routine, but I decided to do a strength type warm-up routine. So I am fitting that strength training in while also warming up. So that, again, kind of like we talked about for the last, when we talked about the running training plan, really trying to think about your schedule, think about the time that you're using, and is there 5 minutes that I could be doing something else, that I could be doing a little bit of strength. Again, I don't think you're usually going to hear someone recommend like stacking it with your run, especially if your run was like a workout run. Actually, really any run, because a lot of the points of the runs is either having it run focused, speed focused, long distance focused, or recovery focused, or really none of that's going to fit super well in with doing a strength workout at that time. But that is something you can do, is fitting a little bit in the beginning, fitting a little bit in at the end, something like that if you need to do it that way. So with that, obviously, I should have probably mentioned this before. I just kind of went on a tangent about where you can fit in strength training. But the easiest way, at least I think, to fit strength training into a schedule when you're super busy is sticking with those body weight exercises. Because not only can you do it everywhere and you can't end up forgetting something, so you have no excuse not to do it. You can do it everywhere. You can do it anywhere. You don't need to have the time to set it up. You don't need to have the equipment, any of that stuff. So I think a lot of us who've ever been to like a traditional gym, you can see how people can spend 2 hours in there and they maybe lifted like 4 different lifts total, but they spent those 2 hours because of setup, rest, writing stuff down in their journals, like any of those kinds of things. So thinking of moving away from that idea of it, and having it be more of like, for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to rotate through, squats, lunges, sit-ups, and push-ups or something. And you just kind of do that right there. You may not be getting like a huge sweat or something, but you are moving those muscles in a different way, working your body in a different way, strengthening those muscles in a different capacity. So fitting something like that in is super helpful. Also, I like body weight exercises because I don't feel like I need to be maxing out any lifts with what my training is right now. So body weight really works fine. You can get a burn in by still doing that. So, and there's so many versatile options too. And I think a lot of us have a better ability to do the body weight movements correctly without having an extra load on us. So we are also less likely to get hurt, which would be exactly what we're trying to avoid. Let's see. So we talked about body weight movements. We're talking about focus on areas of need. So that's with what I was mentioning about like the glute activation stuff. So especially if I don't have time to be, doing an elaborate strength training routine, what muscles are we using? What muscles do I need to be strengthening? So not just the ones that I use, but what's important for my body to work efficiently. So like one thing I think I do and could almost always skip is like, I don't need to be sitting around here doing bicep curls. Not really doing anything of that motion while I'm running. Yes, my arms are still important. I don't want to neglect my arms because I am using that with running, and being balanced is always going to be helpful, but that's like an exercise I don't need to be like, oh, how am I going to fit my bicep curls in today, right? Not super necessary. So focusing on areas of need for runners, but also like what I need specifically. So like I said, I spend those 5 minutes before certain runs to do some glute activation stuff. Also focusing on things that are like unilateral, because running, we are, using one thing at a time. Our legs are not going together. We're not hopping, or anything like that. You're usually not hopping like that. So thinking of like those lunges, side lunges, things where your each side of you is working not at the same time. I feel like there's a way more articulate way to explain that, but you know what I'm talking about when I'm saying the unilateral movements, right? And also working in different planes. So I think it was so long ago when I was talking to, who was it, Rachel Pope, about gait analysis and things like that. But we were talking about the common injuries runners get and the things that she would see people for. And a lot of it is because we're not doing those side to side things, because we really are just focusing on that forward motion. So then we are really losing out on the strength that we need to keep our hips and knees and everything healthy. So when we're doing strength training is a great time to focus on those different kinds of muscles that we need to be keeping strong and healthy and activated, that we're not always just using while we're running. Let's see. Oh, so also body weight movements. You can obviously Google these things, like which kind of body weight movements to do. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube. If you check our YouTube channel, it is very underwhelming. But there are a couple of videos up there of me going through a few different body weight exercises. And then in the description, there's a suggestion of a couple different workouts you can do with those things to pair them together to get like a full body workout. So those are in there, but again, just type it into Google and you'll find so many different things. And I even was checking today to make sure some good resources come up. If you just look like body weight exercises for runners, there's so much that comes up that's going to give you good suggestions of different things to do to make sure you work, your lower body, your core, your upper body, and kind of keeping everything that you need to work on worked on. Let's see, just some other general tips. So I said checking on YouTube. Another thing, and like obviously we're talking about body weight exercises, but again, any kind of exercise that you want to do that's strength training is fine. It's just so easy, I think, to do body weight exercises, but getting your barbell out, getting some dumbbells, kettlebells, your laundry detergent, paint cans, whatever it is, I would say try to avoid the machines when we're talking about being in a time crunch, especially. I'm not a big fan of like workout machines anyway, but when you're on a machine, usually a different part of you is now stabilized by the machine. So if you're not using the machine, you're using free weights or whatever, you're standing up, you are now having to support your body, you're stabilizing your core and those kinds of things. So you are getting a little more bang for your buck with each movement. Just because you are having to do the work to keep yourself upright, to keep yourself balanced. So just kind of thinking of those things to be helpful when you're in a time crunch as well. And then also another thing is combining movements. And I think you can also find a lot of this stuff on YouTube, Google, anything like that. But instead of like, okay, I'm going to do, every time now that I record in my like my heating room, every time the heater comes on, I don't think you actually can hear it on here, but every time it comes on, it scares me and I forgot to turn it off. So, yes, body weight, combining the movements. So it doesn't just have to be body weight movements, but just for some examples. So instead of doing some squats and then doing an overhead press or something, you do those things together, right? So some people will call that a thruster, but doing a squat and then as you're standing up, you're now pressing overhead. So you're combining those movements. So you're again using more of your body. Obviously that's going to take a little longer than just, repping out a bunch of squats, but you don't have to then be like, I'm doing this isolated movement, then this isolated movement, then this isolated movement. And then also doing things like adding in burpees or mountain climbers because you're now getting the cardio plus the strength. So there's a lot of different things that you can check out there with the body weight stuff without having to use machines, but also combining things together. Another tip, and I don't know if this actually is helpful or relevant to anybody, but I know for me, I like the idea of like checking out a YouTube video, doing, whatever workout they have on there. But especially if I'm feeling pressured on time, it's so much easier to have a workout in my head that I already know, like I'm going to do 10 minutes of 10, 10, 10 of whatever 3 exercises, right? So either checking out YouTube videos and coming up with, these 3 I like and having those workouts kind of memorized or in your phone or something that they're more easy to access is going to be helpful if you're like, oh, I have 5 spare minutes. What was that workout I could do? So just thinking of those things as well. Again, a lot of this is just going to be like extra planning. But to be able to get some of that stuff done will be nice instead of being like, oh, I wish I had my computer. I could have checked out what this workout was. Oh, what's the workout again? I'm sure there's some kind of like workout TikTok thing out into the internet that I feel like I don't have any idea of, but there's got to be ways for you to find quick workouts, whether it's memorizing things, writing them down or something, but having something in your head that you can always do is going to also help you with saving time. Another thing, and this just kind of popped into my head, was taking our like cross training, and this is something I do. Again, it doesn't always work for everybody, but like yoga strength is also something we can consider our strength workout. You don't have to be throwing around weights to have it be a strength day. So if I'm doing stretching, I need some mobility, some kind of easy flow as a cross training day. It can also end up being a strength day if I'm adding in some of those like strength type movements, certain kinds of holds. Again, I'm a huge YouTube advocate. Check out YouTube. You Google strength yoga for runners, or I say Google, I'm like using Google wrong. You search in YouTube for strength training yoga for runners or strength training yoga. You're going to find a million things in there too. So those things also count because you are working those muscles, building up strength. So those are things to consider. Oh, and one thing back to when I mentioned scheduling wise for your strength and having that like one day in between. I don't think I said this before. try not to pack your week with like Monday strength, Tuesday speed workout, Wednesday strength, Thursday's long run, then like rest, rest, rest. Again, I know we said like really trying to make it work. Um, whatever you have available is going to be better than nothing, but just try not to have it be that day because you are going to lose out on some of those benefits of whether it's your long run, your strength day, or your speed day, or something like that if you're not giving your body enough time to recover and heal. So also thinking of that as well. Let's see. And then the last thing I really want to talk about, and then it's really all I have right now for strength training tips. Also considering some kind of like high intensity interval training kind of thing, or CrossFit or functional fitness. I think a lot of us can picture what I'm talking about. Street parking. Miranda Alcaraz and her family started this online functional fitness gym kind of thing. It was part of CrossFit, not really part of CrossFit, whatever it is. But it's all online. So again, if you're busy, that's helpful. You can do it all on your own time. But they have lots of resources as well. So a whole online community, they have resource library, they have videos, they have modifications for everything. But a lot of their workouts, they are always going to have an option that can be done in a short amount of time because again, I think they really are gearing towards people who don't have a whole lot of time. So I know when I did it, I was almost never out in my gym for more than 20 minutes unless I wanted to be, to get a quick warm up in and then just really bang out a 10-minute workout and you're tired, you're sore, you're feeling it. So that those are options too of other things to look at. Again, that's not as simple as like me doing squats while I wait for my coffee to be brewed, but it's another thing. It's not super expensive. They have a lot of assistance for you too. So like for people who don't want to be either searching YouTube or coming up with their own workouts, they have a lot of options for you. They have people I think that can help you understand how to do the movements, understand how to modify, all that kind of stuff. So that's just another avenue to look at to fit strength training in. And then you still have to be thinking of like, not probably doing this every day if I want to be focused on my running, but I can do this a couple times a week, fit different kinds of things. And I'm sure they have like recovery days and stuff as well in their schedule. So that's just one thing I wanted to bring up. And I feel like the philosophy of that gym specifically, what kind of fits in with this whole idea, their big thing is like more than nothing. So that's kind of what we've really been talking about is like whatever you can fit in to be able to do is better than not doing it at all because you can't dedicate an hour to go to body combat at the Y, right? So I really always like that idea. And they also talk about though how much intensity and intention that you bring to your workout is going to change things as well. So I could go do a 10-minute workout right now, not really put a lot of effort into it, not really go super hard, all that stuff, and maybe not get a whole lot out of it. Or I could go in there really ready to work hard, have my weight set. I know exactly what I'm going to be doing and get after it. And then I really feel lots of benefits. So not saying you have to go hard all the time, but just another thing to think about if you're like, I've been doing strength training, it's not really getting me anywhere. How much are you really bringing to it? It's going to also affect things. Yes, that's kind of really all I want to just put out there. Again, nothing super nuanced, nothing really, groundbreaking, but we are going to be talking more about strength training, but we also are going to be talking about a lot of other things that can be related to strength training and then why we're doing strength training to be good runners. So again, just super quick takeaways. We should be doing strength training. It's going to help us 2 to 3 times a week if possible. Trying to have some time in between. Also not stacking it right up against a hard workout or a long workout with your runs if possible. But then also trying to do something, right? Even if it's just like now we're trying to develop that habit of like, oh, I did 5 minutes of strength training this week. Like you did more than you used to do. And you're going to feel that you're going to be able to, your body's going to be more adapted for running. So thinking of those kinds of things. Hopefully you enjoy. If you haven't already listened to the episode with Coach T, hopefully you like that because she has so much to say about strength training. I will also link her Instagram in the notes for this just because, especially lately, I think for the new year, she's been focusing more on putting out some workout content and different things there. So feel free to give her a follow and check that stuff out. And yeah, I'm hoping also to be able to add some more things to YouTube so that there are some more resources there, especially for strength training, because I know I'm constantly telling my runners, like, check out this video, do this, all that stuff. And it'd be nice to actually be like, I made this video specifically for you, kind of thing. So hopefully there'll be more of that in the future. We do have a couple guests coming up. I always say we, and I forget that it's just me. There are some guests coming up. We will be talking, especially in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be, what are we talking about? We're going to be talking about recovery, injury prevention, things like that. We also will be talking about sleep in the next month or so. We will be talking to a running coach and a doctor about, she specifically has formulated plans and works with people who are super busy. So all of her knowledge felt really relevant to what we're talking about. So we're going to get to chat with her. And we also have another author coming up in the near future as well. And then I have a few other people I'm still trying to schedule with. So there are a bunch of guests. I promise we'll have lots of valuable people giving some information. Yeah, and then I'm sure sporadically in there, I will be talking again about some training plans. Surprise, surprise, there's another 5K one coming out, because that's really where my head's been at lately, is just talking 5K. But we will have plans for other things in the future. But that's just kind of what I've been up to lately. So that is what we will be talking about. But yeah, so stay tuned for all of that stuff. Also, for local people, just a reminder again, rock climbing March 11th. If you want to climb with us and give 50% of your registration fee to mental health, we are donating all of our money now to NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So yeah, so feel free to sign up for that. I'll have the link in the notes. And then also local or non-local people, runners, walkers, movers, anybody, we are still doing our run on May 20th. It is the 1 hour running challenge, walking challenge, whatever you would like to do. There will be t-shirts for anybody who participates, either in person or virtually. We will be mailing them out if it's virtual. And then we do still have a couple raffles and giveaways as well with that. So feel free to check all that out. And the link is also in the notes. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe, all the things that you can do for a podcast that you enjoy listening to. Make sure you check out social media, our website, any of those things. If you have questions, comments, interview requests, feel free to email me at marikeyrunclub@gmail.com.